The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of floating crystal and light. Representatives from 347 species sat in their designated sections, each one breathing different air, seeing different colors, thinking in patterns that had evolved across millions of years and countless worlds. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where the fate of empires was decided. Ambassador Valeth of the Lasari Collective stood at the central platform, her silver skin reflecting the soft glow of 1,000 holographic displays. She was delivering her weekly report on primitive worlds, a task most council members considered boring. Today's subject was a small blue planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. Earth remains classified as a primitive observation zone, Valeth announced, her voice carrying through the translation systems to every ear and audio receptor in the chamber. The dominant species, known as humans, continue their pattern of internal conflict. They have achieved basic space travel, but remain confined to their home system. Our recommendation is to maintain current observation status. A few council members nodded. Most did not bother to pay attention. Earth had been on the primitive list for 300 years. Humans were considered a curiosity at best, a warning at worst. A species that spent most of its existence fighting itself was not worth serious study. Then Councillor Tharn of the Kreth Dominion rose from his seat. The Kreth were tall reptilian beings with scales the color of dried blood. They had built their empire through conquest, swallowing smaller species and claiming their worlds. The council tolerated them because they were powerful and because they followed the rules, mostly. The Kreth Dominion formally requests expansion rights into the Sol system, Tharn announced. His voice was cold and confident. Earth possesses valuable resources. The native species is primitive and poses no threat. We will handle the transition efficiently. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some species shifted uncomfortably. Others showed no reaction at all. High Counselor Mithrani, an ancient being whose species had guided the council for 10,000 years, leaned forward in her elevated seat. Her eyes were like pools of liquid gold, and they had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a cosmic shore. The Sol system is a protected observation zone, she said carefully. The humans have not been contacted. They do not know we exist. Tharn made a sound that might have been laughter. And they never will. The Kreth do not seek partnership with primitives. We seek their world. They can serve us, or they can disappear. Either outcome is acceptable. You speak of conquest, said Ambassador Valeth. The Council does not sanction. The Council does not need to sanction anything. Tharn interrupted. We are not asking for help. We are informing you of our intentions as a courtesy. The humans have no allies here. They have no voice. They have no protection under galactic law, because they are not members of galactic civilization. What happens to them is not the Council's concern. He was right, and everyone knew it. The laws were clear. Primitive species had no rights until they achieved faster than light travel and made contact. Until then, they were resources to be claimed. The vote was held. Most species abstained. A few voted against. None voted to actively stop the Kreth. It was not their problem. It was not their world. 3 days later, the Kreth fleet departed for Earth. 400 warships carrying 500,000 soldiers. It was more than enough to conquer a single planet. It was more than enough to crush any resistance. High Counselor Mithrani watched the fleet's trajectory on the holographic display long after the other council members had returned to their own concerns. Her aide, a young being named Sorath, stood quietly beside her. Something troubles you, High Counselor? Sorath asked. Mithrani did not answer immediately. She was thinking about something that had bothered her for years. A small detail that everyone else seemed to ignore. What do we actually know about humans? She finally asked. Sorath checked the records. Basic biological data, atmospheric requirements, population estimates, social structures, the usual primitive species, documentation. But have we studied them? They were deemed uninteresting, High Counselor. a short-lived species prone to self-destruction. Our analysts predicted they would likely destroy themselves within a few centuries. There seemed to be no point in detailed study. Mithrani pulled up the human file on her display. She looked at the images of their cities, their weapons, their history. She saw the wars they had fought against each other. She saw the weapons they had built, devices powerful enough to destroy their own world many times over. A species that has survived 5 mass extinctions, she said quietly. A species that builds weapons capable of ending all life on their planet and then chooses not to use them. A species that has been at war with itself for 10,000 years and still exists. She turned to look at Sorath. And we never thought to study them properly? Sorath had no answer. The Kreeth believe they are going to harvest a primitive world, Mithrani continued. They believe this will be easy, quick, efficient. She shook her head slowly. I hope they are right. But something tells me we have all made a terrible mistake. Far across the galaxy, the Kreeth fleet moved through the darkness between stars. Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the distant light of Sol grow brighter with each passing hour. He had conquered 12 worlds in his career. He had never lost a battle. He expected this campaign to be the easiest of all. Behind him, his officers prepared invasion plans. Ground troops checked their weapons. Transport ships, loaded with soldiers, waited for deployment orders. None of them knew what was waiting for them. None of them understood what humans truly were. On Earth, billions of people went about their daily lives. They worked and laughed and argued and loved. They had no idea that their world had been sold to conquerors by a government they did not know existed. They had no idea that an alien fleet was coming to claim everything they had ever built. But they would learn soon enough. And when they did, the galaxy would learn something too. It would learn that some species are not meant to be conquered. Some species do not know how to surrender. Some species, when pushed to the edge of extinction, do not break. They fight. And humans had been fighting since the day they first stood upright on the plains of Africa. War was not new to them. War was in their blood. War was what they did better than anything else in the universe. The Kreeth were about to discover this truth. The Galactic Council would watch in shock, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Kreeth fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning. Across Earth, satellites went dark one by one. Television screens flickered and changed to show the same image everywhere. A massive reptilian face speaking words that translation software converted into every human language. People of Earth, Commander Vorath announced from his flagship. Your world now belongs to the Kreeth Dominion. You will surrender immediately. You will obey all instructions. Those who resist will be destroyed. Those who cooperate will be allowed to serve. You have 1 hour to respond. Then silence. In government buildings around the world, leaders stared at screens in shock. Military commanders demanded explanations that nobody could give. Scientists confirmed what everyone already knew. The ships were real. The threat was real. And Earth had no defense against technology. Centuries ahead of their own. Commander Vorath waited on his bridge, confident and patient. He had seen this before. Primitive species always responded the same way. First came the shock. Then came the fear. Then came the surrender. It was simple. It was predictable. It was almost boring. His communication officer monitored Earth's radio frequencies, waiting for the surrender message. 1 hour passed. Nothing. Vorath frowned. Status report? No response, Commander. All frequencies are. This was unusual. Most species begged for mercy within minutes. Perhaps the humans were too shocked to respond. Perhaps their leaders were still arguing among themselves. It did not matter. He would give them a demonstration of Kreeth power, and then they would understand. Send the first wave, he ordered. Begin landing operations in major population centers. Show them what resistance costs. Thousands of Kreeth soldiers descended on Earth cities in dropships. They expected chaos. They expected terrified civilians running through the streets. They expected easy victory. They found something else. In Moscow, the first Kreth squad landed in Red Square. They formed up in perfect military formation. Weapons ready, prepared to establish a command post. They never saw the sniper who killed their squad leader from 800 meters away. They never saw the second shot, or the third. By the time they identified the shooter's position, he was gone, and 3 more of their soldiers were dead. In Beijing, Kreth troops attempted to secure a government building. They walked into a trap. Human soldiers had prepared the building with explosives and waited in hidden positions. The Kreth lost 40 soldiers in the first 10 minutes. In New York, the response was even worse. Civilians, ordinary people with no military training, attacked Kreth patrols with hunting rifles, kitchen knives, baseball bats, and homemade bombs. They died by the dozens, but they kept coming. An old man drove his truck into a Kreth formation at full speed. A teenage girl threw acid into an alien soldier's face. A group of construction workers ambushed a patrol with power tools. Commander Vorath received the reports with growing confusion. What is happening down there? Resistance, Commander. Heavy resistance. Across all landing zones. That is impossible. They have no chance of victory. They must know this. But the humans did not seem to care about their chances. They fought anyway. They fought with weapons that should not have worked against Kreth armor. They fought with tactics that made no military sense. They fought with a fury that the Kreth had never encountered before. On the ground, Kreth soldiers began sending desperate reports. The humans did not behave like any species they had conquered before. They did not run. They did not hide. They did not try to negotiate or surrender. They attacked. A Kreth officer captured a wounded human soldier during a battle in London. The woman had been shot twice and had a broken arm. She should have been begging for medical attention. Instead, she was laughing. "Why do you laugh?" the officer demanded. "You are defeated. Your species is defeated. Why do you not surrender?" The soldier looked at him with eyes that held no fear. "Defeated? You've been here 6 hours. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. You think this is defeat?" She spat blood onto the ground. "This is Tuesday." The officer did not understand. He reported the conversation to his commanders, who also did not understand. They consulted their xenobiology databases and found almost nothing useful about human psychology. Back on the flagship, Commander Vorath demanded answers from his science officers. Why are they not surrendering? Why do they keep fighting when they cannot win? The senior science officer studied the data with growing concern. "Commander, I believe we have made an error in our assessment of this species." "What error?" "Humans are not like other primitives. They did not evolve as prey animals. They evolved as predators. Specifically, they are persistence predators. They evolved to chase their prey across vast distances, for days if necessary, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They are designed to endure, to outlast, to never stop. That is just biology. It does not explain their behavior. It explains everything, Commander. They do not calculate odds the way we do. They do not see a fight they cannot win and choose surrender. They see a fight they cannot win and choose to make it as painful as possible for their enemy. It is in their nature. They cannot help it. Vorath stared at the reports from the surface. His invasion force had expected to control the planet within days. Instead, they were fighting for every street, every building, every room. Human casualties were catastrophic. But they did not stop fighting. If anything, they fought harder. "There is something else, Commander," the science officer added quietly. "What?" "They are learning. They are capturing our weapons and studying them. They are analyzing our tactics and adapting. One of our communication networks has already been compromised by their computer specialists. They are learning faster than any species in our records." Far below, in a secret bunker somewhere in the mountains, human military leaders from every nation on Earth sat around a single table. For the first time in history, there were no arguments about borders or politics or old grudges. There was only one enemy now. There was only one mission. A general from the United States spoke first. They have superior technology, superior numbers, superior everything. A general from Russia nodded. So we do what humans have always done when facing a stronger enemy. We make them pay for every inch. We make this the most expensive conquest in their history. We make them regret the day they ever heard of Earth. A general from China stood and walked to the map showing Kreeth positions. They expect us to break. They expect us to surrender. They do not understand what we are. Quote, "Then we teach them," said a general from India. Around the table, heads nodded. Enemies who had pointed nuclear weapons at each other for decades now shared intelligence and resources freely. The human race had never been united before. The Kreeth had done what no human leader had ever managed. They had given humanity a common enemy. And humanity was just getting started. On the Kreeth flagship, Commander Vorath watched the casualty reports climb and felt something he had never felt before in his military career. Doubt. 2 weeks into the invasion, the Galactic Council reconvened for an emergency session. The observation feeds from Earth played on the central display, and 347 species watched in stunned silence. They had expected to see a conquered world. They had expected to see humans in chains, serving their new Kreeth masters. They had expected the usual outcome when a primitive species met a spacefaring empire. Instead, they saw war. Real war. Total war. The kind of war that the galaxy had not witnessed in centuries. Human cities burned, but so did Kreeth forward bases. Human soldiers died by the thousands, but Kreeth casualty reports showed numbers that no one had predicted. The invasion that was supposed to last days had stretched into weeks, and there was no end in sight. "This is impossible," muttered a council member from the Veloxy hegemony. "How are they still fighting?" Kroot. No one had an answer. On Earth, something remarkable was happening. The human race, divided by language and culture and history, had become one. Factories that once built cars now built weapons. Scientists who once competed for funding now shared research freely. Soldiers who once served rival nations now fought side by side. And they were learning. In a hidden laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps, a team of engineers worked around the clock on a captured Kreeth rifle. They had taken it apart piece by piece, studied every component, and figured out how it worked. Now they were building copies. The copies were crude, heavy, and ugly. But they worked. "The power source is the key," said Dr. Sarah Chen, the team leader. She had not slept in 3 days. None of them had. Once we understood their energy cells, everything else became clear. We can make these. We can make thousands of these. Within days, the first human-made energy weapons reached the front lines. They were not as elegant as Kreeth technology, but human soldiers did not care about elegance. They cared about killing aliens, and these weapons killed aliens very well. The Kreeth noticed the change immediately. Suddenly, human soldiers were not just fighting with primitive bullets and explosives. They were fighting with plasma rifles. They were fighting with weapons that could punch through Kreeth armor. They were fighting back. Commander Vorath demanded an explanation. "How did they replicate our technology so quickly? We have been here for 2 weeks. 2 weeks! It takes most species decades to understand basic galactic technology." His science officer had no good answer. "They learn, Commander. They learn faster than any species we have ever encountered. And they share knowledge freely among themselves. There is no competition, no secrecy, no individual credit. They work as one organism with billions of brains." But the weapons were just the beginning. Human hackers, working in basement rooms and hidden bunkers, launched attacks on Kreeth computer systems. The Kreeth had never bothered to secure their networks against primitive species. Why would they? No primitive had ever threatened them before. Now they paid for that arrogance. Communication lines went dead. Navigation systems gave wrong information. Supply shipments went to wrong locations. The humans were not just fighting. They were adapting, evolving, becoming something more dangerous with each passing day. In the Galactic Council chamber, High Counselor Mithrani watched the feeds with growing unease. She had suspected from the beginning that humans were not ordinary primitives. Now she knew she had been right. But knowing did not help. The situation was spinning out of control. Counselor Tharn of the Kreth stood before the council, his scales flushed with anger. "We demand support. The humans are using forbidden weapons. They have violated galactic conventions. The council must intervene." "What forbidden weapons?" asked Ambassador Valeth. "Nuclear weapons. They have used nuclear weapons against our forces." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Nuclear weapons were considered barbaric by galactic standards. No civilized species used them. "The humans were not signatories to the galactic conventions," Mithrani said carefully. "They did not know those conventions existed. You invaded their world without warning, without negotiation, without any attempt at peaceful contact. They are fighting for survival, with every tool available to them. Can you truly blame them?" Tharn's eyes burned with fury. "They must be stopped. If the council will not help us, we will handle this ourselves. We will burn their world to ash." "You would destroy the planet you came to claim? Better destroyed than in human hands." The threat was clear. The Kreth were losing, and they knew it. If they could not conquer Earth, they would destroy it. Orbital bombardment would kill billions. It would end the war, but it would also end humanity. On Earth, human leaders received intelligence about the Kreth plan. They had intercepted and decoded enemy communications. They knew what was coming. "They will bomb us from orbit," said General Morrison, commander of the unified human forces. "We cannot stop them. Our weapons cannot reach their ships. Then we make weapons that can," said Dr. Chen, who had been brought to the command bunker to advise on captured technology. "How?" "We have no spacecraft. We have no way to fight them in orbit. We have missiles. We have nuclear warheads. And now we understand their shield technology." She pulled up diagrams on a screen. "Their shields are powerful, but they have a weakness. A specific frequency disrupts them. If we modify our missiles, add the right kind of pulse generator, we can punch through their defenses." It was a desperate plan. Most of the missiles would be intercepted. Most of the pilots who delivered them would die. But some would get through. Some would reach the enemy ships. "It is suicide," said a general from France. "It is war," replied General Morrison. "And we do not have another option." The modified missiles launched 3 days later, just as the Kreth bombardment platforms moved into position. Every nuclear-capable nation contributed. Every missile was aimed at the sky. It was the largest coordinated military operation in human history. The Kreth saw the missiles coming and laughed. Primitive rockets against advanced warships? It was pathetic. Their point defense systems began targeting the incoming threats. But there were so many. Hundreds of missiles. Thousands. More than their systems could track. More than they had ever expected from a primitive world. The first missiles were destroyed. The second wave, too. But the third wave carried the pulse generators. Shields flickered and failed. Suddenly, Kreth ships were vulnerable. Nuclear fire bloomed in orbit. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Voreth watched his bombardment platforms disappear in blinding flashes of light. One moment, they were there. The next, they were expanding clouds of debris. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" His sensors showed something worse. A human pilot, his small spacecraft damaged and burning, was heading directly for Vorath's flagship. The pilot had no weapons left. His ship was falling apart, but he was not retreating. The last transmission from the human pilot came through on all frequencies. "You came to take our home. You can have it. One handful of ash at a time." The small ship hit the flagship at full speed. Commander Vorath had 1 second to understand what was happening before the explosion consumed him. In the Galactic Council chamber, 347 species watched the Kreth command ship break apart in silence. The mighty Commander Vorath, conqueror of 12 worlds, was dead, killed by a single human in a burning ship who had chosen death over surrender. High Counselor Mithrani spoke into the silence. Does anyone still believe humans are primitive? No one answered. No one knew what to believe anymore. 3 months after the invasion began, the Kreth Dominion sent a second fleet. This time, there was no arrogance, no confident predictions of easy victory. The new fleet commander, Admiral Sethrak, had studied every report from the failed invasion. He understood that humans were not ordinary prey. He brought 800 warships, twice the original force. He brought weapons designed to destroy planets. He brought every soldier the Dominion could spare. This time, he would not underestimate them. But Admiral Sethrak did not understand something important. 3 months was a very long time for humans. In 3 months, human scientists had completely decoded Kreth technology. They had not just copied it, they had improved it. Human engineers, working without sleep and fueled by rage and coffee, had built things the Kreth had never imagined. Weapons that were smaller, faster, more deadly. Ships that were ugly and brutal but terrifyingly effective. In 3 months, human factories had converted entirely to war production. Every car factory built tanks. Every electronics plant built targeting systems. Every home with a 3D printer produced weapon components. The entire planet had become a single war machine. In 3 months, humans had learned to fly Kreth ships. The first captured vessels had been difficult to control. The controls were designed for reptilian hands, the displays for reptilian eyes. But humans adapted. They always adapted. Young pilots trained in simulators built from captured technology. They learned to handle acceleration that would kill most species. They learned to think in 3 dimensions, to fight in the cold vacuum of space. When Admiral Sethrak's fleet arrived at Earth, he expected to find a weakened enemy. He expected damaged cities and desperate defenders. He expected the humans to be on the edge of defeat. Instead, he found a fleet waiting for him. Human ships rose from hidden bases on the moon, from stations built in the asteroid belt, from carriers disguised as civilian transports. They were not beautiful ships. They were welded together from salvaged Kreth wreckage and human steel. They looked like monsters, bristling with weapons and covered in armor. They had names painted on their hulls in human languages. Names like Revenge and Fury and Remember Earth. Admiral Sethrak stared at his sensors in disbelief. Where did they get ships? They had no space fleet 3 months ago. His officers had no answer. The human fleet attacked without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. They swarmed the Kreth formation like angry insects, firing from every direction. When their weapons ran empty, they rammed. When their ships were crippled, the pilots ejected and boarded enemy vessels with cutting tools and grenades. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, half of Sethrak's fleet was destroyed. The other half was retreating toward Kreth space. But the humans were not finished. In the Galactic Council chamber, every screen showed the same image: a human woman in military uniform, standing in what appeared to be a command center. Behind her, human officers worked at stations displaying star maps and fleet positions. She spoke directly to the assembled species of the galaxy. My name is General Sarah Morrison. I speak for the United Human Defense Force, and for every person on Earth. The chamber fell silent. This was humanity's first direct communication with the galactic community. 3 months ago, the Kreth Dominion invaded our world without warning, without cause, without mercy. They came to enslave us or destroy us. They thought we were primitive. They thought we would be easy prey. Her eyes hardened. They were wrong. She paused, letting the words sink in. We have defeated their invasion. We have destroyed their fleets. We have captured their technology and made it our own. And now we have a message for the Kreth, and for anyone else who might think of threatening our home. The star map behind her changed, showing the route from Earth to Krith space. "We are coming." Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Several species shifted nervously. "We did not start this war. We did not want this war. But we will finish it. The Kreth came to our home. Now we are going to theirs. We will not stop until they can never threaten us again." She looked directly into the camera, directly at every species watching. "To the rest of the galaxy, we offer a choice. Stand with us, and you will find us to be the most loyal allies in the universe. We protect our friends. We remember kindness. We repay debts." Her expression hardened. "Stand against us, and you will share the fate of the Kreth. We did not crawl out of the mud, survive ice ages and plagues and 1,000 wars with ourselves, just to be conquered by anyone. We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not forget. And we do not forgive." The transmission ended. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Some species demanded immediate action against Earth. They called humans dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to galactic stability. Others argued for peace, for diplomacy, for welcoming humans into galactic civilization before it was too late. Councillor Tharn of the Kreth was screaming for support, demanding that the council stop the human advance. "They are primitives. They cannot be allowed to threaten the Dominion. The council must act." High Councillor Mithrani raised her hand for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of wisdom. The council did not act when the Kreth invaded Earth. The council did not act when humans fought for their survival. We watched. We abstained. We decided it was not our problem. She looked at Tharn with ancient, unforgiving eyes. "Now it is everyone's problem. And we have no one to blame but ourselves." Far from the council chamber, in the darkness between stars, the first human warship capable of faster-than-light travel completed its test flight. It was called Never Again. Its crew was made up of volunteers who had lost families in the invasion. Its mission was simple: find the Kreth homeworld and make them pay. The ship's captain, a woman named Elena Vasquez, who had watched her children die in the first bombardment, stood on the bridge as the stars blurred and stretched around her. "Course plotted," her navigator announced. "We can reach Krith space in 3 weeks." Captain Vasquez nodded. "Send the signal to the rest of the fleet. Tell them we're moving out." Behind her, through the viewport, she could see the other ships of the human armada forming up. Hundreds of vessels. Thousands of soldiers. All of them volunteers. All of them ready to die. "The Kreth thought they could break us," she said quietly. "They thought if they killed enough of us, we would give up. They did not understand." She turned to her crew. "We do not break. We bend. We adapt. We survive. And then we come back stronger than before. That is what it means to be human." After, the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, vanishing from the solar system that humans had called home for 200,000 years. They were no longer defenders. They were conquerors now, and the galaxy trembled. 1 year after the invasion of Earth, the human fleet arrived at the Kreth homeworld. The journey had been long and bloody. Human forces had fought through 3 Kreth defense lines, destroyed 12 military stations, and liberated 4 conquered worlds along the way. The species that had been enslaved by the Kreth looked at their human rescuers with a mixture of gratitude and fear. These small, fragile-looking creatures had done what no one else in the galaxy had managed. They had broken the Kreth dominion. Now the final battle was at hand. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of Never Again and looked at the planet below. It was a dry world, covered in red deserts and gray cities. Billions of Kreth lived there. Soldiers, yes, but also civilians. Families, children. She thought about her own children, killed in the first days of the invasion. She thought about the millions of humans who had died. She thought about the rage that had carried her across the stars to this moment. She had the power to destroy this world. Her fleet carried weapons that could crack the planet's crust, boil its oceans, burn its atmosphere. She could end the Kreth species with a single order. Eye for an eye. Death for death. Part of her wanted to do it. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the surface. The Kreth leadership is requesting to negotiate surrender." The bridge fell silent. Every officer looked at their captain, waiting. Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment. She saw her children's faces. She heard their laughter. She remembered the morning before the invasion, when everything was normal. When she had no idea that her world was about to end. The Kreth had taken everything from her. They deserved to lose everything too. But she also remembered something else. Something her mother had told her long ago. Revenge is a poison you drink, hoping it will kill someone else. She opened her eyes. "Tell them we will negotiate. But not from orbit. I want to look them in the eye." 3 hours later, Captain Vasquez walked into the Kreth Capitol building with an escort of human soldiers. The building was massive, built for beings much larger than humans. She felt small in this place, but she did not feel weak. The Kreth High Council waited in their chamber. Old reptilians with scarred scales and tired eyes. They had ruled an empire once. Now, they ruled ruins. The senior counselor, a female named Thresk, spoke first. "You have won. We accept this. What are your terms for our destruction?" Vasquez studied her for a long moment. "Why do you assume we want your destruction?" Thresk blinked slowly. "It is what we would do. It is what any species would do. You came for revenge. You came to end us. I came to make sure you could never threaten my people again. That does not require your extinction." Murmurs spread through the Kreth Council. Confusion. Disbelief. "Your fleet will be dismantled?" Vasquez continued. "Your military will be reduced to defensive forces only. You will pay reparations to Earth and to every world you have conquered, and your leaders will face trial for war crimes. You would put us on trial? Judge us by your laws? By galactic law. The law you claimed protected your right to invade us. That same law defines unprovoked aggression as a crime. You will answer for what you did." Thresk leaned forward. "And after the trials? After the reparations? What then? Then you will live. You will rebuild. You will have a chance to become something better than conquerors." "Why?" The question seemed to tear itself from Thresk's throat. "You have every reason to destroy us. Your people died by the millions. Your world burned. Why would you show mercy?" Vasquez thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Because I know where revenge leads. My species has spent 10,000 years fighting itself. We have burned our own cities, killed our own people, committed horrors against each other that would shock even you. We know what happens when hatred wins. It never ends. It just creates more hatred, more war, more death, forever." She stepped closer to the Kreth Council. "I am not here to become what I hate. I am not here to prove that humans can be as cruel as anyone else. I am here to prove that we can be better. That we can choose peace even when war would be easier. That we can show mercy even to those who showed us none." She met Thresk's eyes directly. "That is what makes us strong. Not our weapons. Not our rage. Our ability to choose. To be more than our worst instincts. That is what it means to be human." The Galactic Council convened 1 month later for the most important vote in its history. Whether to admit humanity as a full member species. The debate had lasted for days. Some species were afraid. Humans had proven themselves capable of terrifying violence. They had gone from primitives to galactic power in a single year. What would they become in a century? In a millennium? Others argued that humanity had earned its place. They had defended themselves against impossible odds. They had shown mercy to defeated enemies. They had liberated enslaved worlds. They had proven that strength and compassion could exist together. High Counselor Maithrani called for the final vote. When the count was finished, Humanity had been accepted by a margin of 3 votes. It was the closest vote in Council history. Ambassador Sarah Chen, the former weapons scientist who had helped turn the tide of the war, took her seat in the Council chamber. She was the first human to hold such a position. Around her, representatives of 348 species watched in silence. Mithrani spoke the formal words of welcome. Then she asked Chen to address the council. Chen stood slowly. She looked around the chamber at beings of every shape and size. Some had welcomed her species. Others had voted against. Many were still afraid. "Thank you for accepting us," she began. "I know it was not an easy decision. I know many of you fear what humans might do with the power we now hold." She paused. "So let me tell you what we will do. We will protect the weak. We will stand against tyrants. We will defend any species that faces the kind of threat we faced, because we remember what it was like to be alone. We remember what it was like when no one came to help us." Her voice grew stronger. "We did not climb out of the mud, survive extinction events and ice ages and wars with ourselves, just to become another empire. We are not here to conquer. We are here to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." She looked at the Kreth representative, who sat alone in a smaller seat, stripped of his empire's former glory. "And if anyone forgets that lesson, if anyone thinks they can invade a defenseless world and face no consequences, we will be happy to remind them." She smiled, but there was steel behind it. "We are humans. We protect our friends. We remember our enemies. And we never, ever, give up." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, applause began. Not from all species, but from enough. From the ones who understood. From the ones who had been conquered and liberated. From the ones who had watched a primitive species rise from nothing and change the galaxy forever. High Counselor Mithrani watched Ambassador Chen take her seat and felt something she had not felt in centuries. Hope. Perhaps, she thought. Humans were exactly what the galaxy needed. A reminder that strength was not enough. That mercy mattered. That the measure of a species was not how much destruction it could cause, but how much destruction it chose not to cause. The galaxy had been afraid of humanity. Maybe it should have been grateful instead. Far away, on a small blue planet circling a yellow star, children played in rebuilt cities. Gardens grew in bomb craters. People laughed and loved, and argued, and dreamed. The scars of the invasion were still visible, but new things were growing from them. Humanity had survived. Humanity had won. And now, humanity would help make sure no one else had to fight alone. That was the human way. That had always been the human way. And it always would be.